In recent years, street or graffiti art has moved well beyond taggings on buildings and highway bridges. Today, it's the stuff of collectors and museums. Jared Bowen recently spoke with one street art star, Barry McGee, at the ICA.
Find artist Barry McGee in the galleries of his ICA retrospective, and you find a man in conflict. He's in tension with his life's work.
It's maybe like seeing an old friend that you never quite finished the relationship with, right? Or it's a little bit awkward.
He's at odds with particular pieces.
I wish it would go away. It's so obnoxious back then. Was it the Branch Davidians in Waco, Texas? Remember when they were using music to like get them to try to come out of the compound? Like, this thing's been going for like the last 2 days here.
And for the man whose acclaim is derived from very public street art, the confines of the museum confound him.
Going back indoors is like going backwards a little bit to me. Your audience it starts reducing the audience.
There is a palpable sensitivity to Barry McGee, a one-time graffiti artist who made his mark in San Francisco beginning in the early 1990s. Much of the show is populated with his melancholic figures, a reflection of the city's large homeless population, one that he encountered working, he says, late at night on San Francisco's fringe.
That would be the population you're in touch with a lot when you're like behind buildings and stuff. So it was an interesting to talk and just find out how people like end up in situations.
I think in his work, a sort of an homage or sort of an honoring another culture that's in the shadows, or community, I should say, a community that's in the shadows.
The ICA's Janelle Porter curated the McGee show, which takes us from the artist's earliest days, a time saturated in earthy brown and red tones, to a vibrant venture into abstraction.
He also is just maturing more, looking at more art, thinking about more histories of painting and of art, but also trying to find a way to incorporate all of the excess of the street in a way that was perhaps more abstracted.
Here he comments on and uses excess. That blaring video tower, the dumpster bin, which has been inhabited, all created from found or discarded objects.
I like to use anything outside of the art store for material, not going into art stores, or that just became the material, I think, for me.
Just as his life and culture is. For all of the darkness in tone, the biting commentary on consumption, the artist also has a crafty comedic side in the guise of animatronics, which Porter says is McGee at his deadpan best.
I also think of it as sort of a diorama, like of the sort of, this is the habitat of the graffiti writer. But as well, I think there's something there's something quite primitive, one could say, in doing graffiti, like if you want to trace it all the way back to cave paintings, like leaving your mark.
And now it is also the mark of the mainstream, in museums. Troubling as that may be for a man of conflict like Barry McGee.
And Jared Bowen is here. Well, this guy is really quirky, Barry McGee, denigrating his own work and everything.
Well, I think that he really struggles. You have to consider when he came up, which was the early 1990s. He's out doing something that was so renegade, and this is something that was certainly not accepted by society, to be tagging buildings and out there working in the middle of the night. I know how you feel about this because I know there have been some incidents in the Back Bay. But when he's in San Francisco, there's also a lot that he's really responding to. So he takes this very personally. He's responding to the AIDS crisis, and again in the 90s, we're coming off the 80s, so we see this American culture in the clutches of capitalism, and the homeless population that we see, he definitely refers to in his work. And so his work is very populist, it's very democratic, and then he's seen the whole transition over the years where now people like himself are in museums, so there's sort of this dichotomy of what he was doing this for. Now it might be for a select few, even though, yes, museums are democratic, they have free nights and so on and so forth, but it is in museums now, and there's sort of a commodification of it. This
is not the first time this kind of stuff has been in a museum, but I'm still grappling with that idea, it's because it almost like on one hand, this guy is an artist, but it almost encourages, unwanted kind of street art, you know?
Well, I think
or street graffiti.
He's talked about the...
Or junk.
Well, the tenor has certainly changed. You know, he came about in this generation with Shepard Fairey and people like that we have enough distance now so we can sort of appreciate with an artistic lens where they may have been coming from, and it wasn't just graffiti for the sake of graffiti. I mean, these are people who have a deliberate intention, and they have artistic ability, and he has seen the way that the art world sort of devoured these people. In fact, they lifted whole subway cars and whole walls to put in their living rooms or lofts in New York, and now they're in museums. To what are people's intentions now that their resonance may not have been behind it? You know what I'm saying, sort of.
That's amazing. I didn't know people did that. They actually took the graffiti. Probably was very valuable.
People like Basquiat. I mean, they became the darlings of the art world, and so that's how we got to this point 20 or 30 years later. I mean, it makes me feel so old and foreign now that we're putting this in museums, where we've seen the transition.
Pretty amazing at a museum. Graffiti at the museum. All right, Jared Bowen, thanks. All right, and that is it for Greater Boston. Adam Riley tells us what's coming up later this week.
Emily, Damian Eccles spent 18 years on Arkansas's death row for the brutal murders of 3 young boys. Today, he's a free man living in Salem, Massachusetts. He joins us to talk about his case and about life after a death sentence.
All right, thanks, Adam. And tomorrow, Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis joins us to talk about a month in Boston like no other, the bombings, the chase, and his recent testimony before Congress, and many still unanswered questions. That's tomorrow at 7. I'm Emily Rooney. Thanks for watching.